In those days, whenever the orthopaedic surgeon from Dunedin came down, physio just stopped, because it was the only place that there was room for him, Mr. White, I think his name was, to come down and review all his surgery and all his patients. And so we acted as nurse, helper, whatever, and physio just stopped for that day or days that he came down every couple of months or 3 months. Quite an interesting accomplishment, that physio was not considered important enough to be dealt with daily. It had to be dealt with on a he could just stop to allow this wonderful surgeon to continue. One thing I remember, I had a Scottish friend came down to work in the radiography department. She was also on a 2-year contract, and there were also other physios and an occupational therapist, and we set up a flat in a old hostel or doctor's living quarters at the back of the hospital. The first place that we had had one electric power point. It had a coal range or a wood range, and we had the only way of heating hot water was via the wood range. So I had never ever actually just cooked on a wood stove, and to get up early in the morning to make breakfast just on the wood stove, well, it was quite an experience, and very, very cold in those days in Invercargill. A few months later we were privileged to be able to move into the other half of this building, which actually had an electric stove, so we really thought we were made, and it had an electric heater, although the heating, the main heating, was still with the wooden fire. Mind you, I enjoyed my time in Invercargill, particularly when Nancy arrived, and she and I managed to save up. We bought a car each. It took me 12 months to save the £200 I needed to buy the car, and I saved and saved and saved. Once I got that money, I bought this little Ford Prefect car, and she and I travelled away most weekends. Saw most of Southland, went down to the coast, we went to Riverton, we went almost everywhere that you could get for a day. And long weekends saw us going up to Queenstown, to Tiano, up to Dunedin. When we had a holiday together, we went further north, and we saw most of the South Island, the pair of us, on holiday times, and during that 2 years. I remember then we actually walked I walked the Milford Track the first Christmas I was there, because obviously Christmas was going to be a terrible time on my own, and so I did the Milford Track that first Christmas that I was there, and the second Christmas we walked the Doubtful Sound Track. But remember, it was that Doubtful Sound Track was there was no dam, there was nothing was planned. Manipuri, yes, I think it was in the process of being planned, but Manipuri, you sailed across Manipuri and then you walked. There was no road, there was no access, and we had to come back again and walk back the same way. The power scheme at that stage, I remember coming, there was on the tourist boat, there was a man who said, he and his wife were out looking. He was actually on the planning stages, and he knew exactly where the road was going to go round Manipuri. And don't forget also, the Hast road had not been built, so the west coast was very inaccessible for those days. And it was not until much later, when I visited the South Island again, that I was able to drive along the Hast road. At the end of 2 years, I had promised my mother that I would go back to England. She had said that I must go immediately that the 2 years was over, but I was not interested in that 2 years. And in any case, I mean, I still had to save up enough money for my fare back to England, because the fare was only to be paid one way, it wasn't a return fare. So at the end of the 2 years, I started making noises and applied for a job at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I wrote to Ben Rose, as he was then, to see if I could work for 6 months at Queen Elizabeth Hospital. And at that stage I didn't really mind whether I went to into the child potential unit, as it now is, or to the it was those days it was called the cerebral palsy unit, or whether I went to the rheumatology section. All I was interested in was really finding myself somewhere to be and be accommodated, so that I could look and travel around the North Island.